Day after day, month after month, year after year, the sun would throw light into this historic home, and there would be no one inside to appreciate it. It sat quietly for more than a decade. Perhaps the tired, achy noise of its bones settling would resonate off plaster walls, but that was it. No sounds of laughter, no sounds of life, no anything for 12 years. Nothing until the solid wood doors would open for a young family, and again for a second, silence.
I couldn't talk because I was going to cry if I opened my mouth. And I just had this overwhelming feeling that I was home.
Not just a home, a mansion. Not just a mansion, but a home, officially listed on the National Register of Historic Places. This was the Rentschler home of Hamilton, Ohio. This is the Hodges home of Hamilton, Ohio.
I'd heard of the Rentschler name before. Growing up, I knew that they'd owned factories and industry in town. But then once we started looking at the house to buy, I looked into it more, and I learned about Frederick Rentschler starting Pratt Whitney and his brother Gordon doing all the banking in New York, and more about the father who built the house.
George Adam Rentschler was an industrial magnate in Hamilton, perhaps best known for his position as president of the Hooven-Owens Rentschler Company that manufactured steam and diesel engines. He built this house at the corner of Dayton and North 7th Streets in 1901. Pratt Whitney founder Frederick Rentschler and his 4 siblings no doubt had many an adventure playing inside this cavernous abode.
And it's pretty crazy to think about what has happened in this house, or what could have happened in this house. Who could have been here, who could have visited.
As the Rentschler manufacturing legacy faded here, the house would eventually be owned by a former Miami University professor, Dr. Sherry Corbett, a nationally known housing rehabilitation expert who represented the state on the National Historic Trust for Preservation. Her celebration of Hamilton's history, however, would end far too quickly.
She completely revitalized the neighborhood. And she was actually killed in 2002 by one of her tenants. And it was very devastating to the neighborhood. So the house sat vacant for 12 years.
In many respects, it's amazing Frederick Rentschler's boyhood home sat untouched for so long. The house is magnificent. Visitors enter into a large foyer. To the left is a seating area where guests can gaze up the wooden staircase highlighted by a stained glass window. To the right is a grand parlor, containing period furniture once owned by Dr. Corbett. There are 2 fireplaces here with ornate carvings. The details are stunningly intricate. The room then connects to another seating area, highlighted by another stained glass window. An old bookcase is anchored to a wall, maybe once filled with narratives about manufacturing and American innovation.
We'll just walk through and it's like, what are you thinking about? Like, I can't believe this is our house.
The dining room is large, bathed in natural light, which makes the exposed beams on the ceiling stand out. The kitchen, small, housing an antique stove that burns wood to generate heat. With all due respect to how the Rentschlers cooked, this will be the first update for the new owners.
My wife doesn't want to cut wood, and I really don't want to either, so I think most people understand that we want a regular kitchen.
But echoes of the Rentschlers' time here remain. Upstairs, a piece of worn paper attached to a wooden door still lists which fuses are designated to the many rooms. Fuse 5 belonged to the room of Miss Phoebe Rentschler, Frederick's mother. Small reminders of the family who once thrived here can also serve as inspiration for perhaps the next aviation pioneer.
It gives me a good excuse. I tell my son that the kids that grew up here did some really great things. That's like an excuse to make him do his homework.
The Rentschler house is quiet no longer, well taken care of by a proud family who celebrate Hamilton's history and one of Hamilton's most famous families. Owning a home such as this carries a special kind of responsibility, one the Hodges welcome.
When we moved in, one of my neighbors told me, we're not the owners, this is not our house. They said, we're the caretaker. There will be families long after us that live in these homes, and we're just the current caretaker. And so I kind of took that to heart.